I spoke in my introduction everything I'm saying tonight is in Lui Nishmas Rabbi Chaim Rabbi Naftali Halevi Zecher Tzadik Livrocho. I spoke in my introduction about the loss of Reb Nachman's baby son, Reb Shlomo Ephraim, at the age of 1 year in the summer of 1806. And I mentioned the radically new direction that Reb Nachman was going to go on when he started telling his Sipurei Maisius, the stories of Rabbi Nachman that come down to the 13 major stories about the, as he puts it, the Shonim Kadmoniyos, the ancient days. This was to come on Shabbos Nachamu of the year 1806, the summer of 1806, right after Tisha B'Av. And Reb Nachman had the custom every year of, after he moved into the town of Breslov in the year 1802, every year he would go back to the areas where he had first, after he lived after he was married and drawn his first Hasidim. All of them used to come to him for Rosh Hashanah and also for Shabbos Chanukah and for Shavuos, but he would go out to his followers on 3 Shabbos in the year, Shabbos Shira, Shabbos Nachamu, and one other Shabbos. And thus it was that he was in the carriage in August of 1806 on the 5th of Av, a very significant day in the Torah calendar, since the 5th of Av is the yahrzeit of the Holy Arizal, Arizal Luria, and just like Lag BaOmer is a day for connection with Rashbi, so is Hei B'Av the time for connection, particularly with Arizal. And in the carriage there were several people traveling. It was presumably quite a crowded carriage. The Rebbe's son-in-law was there were some others there, and in the carriage were Reb Nosson, the Rebbe's closest student, and Reb Nosson's childhood friend, his chavrusa, Reb Naftali. And for several hours in this carriage ride, Reb Nosson writes in the book Chayei Moharan, translated in English as Tzaddik, which is an anecdotal biography of Reb Nachman. He writes there that on this day, for several hours, the Rebbe spoke about Seder Bias Agoyel Tzedek, the order of the coming of the righteous Redeemer, namely the scenario through which Mashiach will be revealed into the world. After the ride, Reb Nosson and Reb Naftali wrote down as much as they could of what they remembered of what the Rebbe had said. The Rebbe warned them not to disseminate this information, and they wrote it in a manuscript that was coded. It was coded using the Hebrew methods of Rosh Tevos, alluding to sentences with the initial letters of the words, abbreviations, remazim, hints, and other devices of encryption. Reb Nosson also writes in Chayei Moharan that 3 years later, in the year 1809, when the Rebbe was already seriously ill with the illness that was going to take his life in the following year, in October of 1810, in the year 1809, Reb Nachman went over again Seder Bias HaGoyel Tzedek, and they also wrote details from that conversation, and Reb Nachman warned them not to disseminate this, but the writings were included in a document that was known to the Breslov Hasidim as the Sefer, the Megillah Sesarim, Megillah scroll of the secrets, the Varim which are Beseter, which are hidden, Megillas Tzesorem. There was another work that the Breslover Hasidim knew of, which Reb Nachman burned in his lifetime. This is known as the Sefer HaNisraf, the burned book, which contains Reb Nachman's highest teachings, which are unknown to us, they've been lost to us. Maybe some other teachings are hidden somewhere. The editor of the Chayei Moharan, translated as Tzaddik, states that afterwards the manuscript was lost. Nevertheless, there was a tradition remaining among the Breslover Hasidim that perhaps the manuscript was in the hands of certain Hasidim. There was a legend that one of the Breslover Hasidim in each generation was privy to the interpretation of the Megillat Starim. It is said that the recipient of the contents, the interpretation of Megillat Starim from Reb Nosson and Reb Naftali was one of the Breslover Hasidim in Russia known as Rabbi Aaron Liveskir. And in order to continue the story, I'd like to tell you that in the Breslov movement today, among what might be called the mainstream Breslovers, namely the Breslover Hasidim who actually received the traditions, the live tradition from teachers who received it from teachers and their teachers from Reb Nosson and then from the Rebbe, there are really two streams in present-day Israel. The Breslover community really had to go underground in Russia after the Russian Revolution in the 1920s and 30s, and by the 1930s the community was becoming seriously depleted. One of the earliest Breslover Hasidim who made Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael was somebody that I referred to earlier for his commentary on Likutei Moharan, Reb Avrom Reb Nachman. He was not the son of Reb Nachman of Breslov, he was the son of Nachman of Tulchin, who was the Chosid and Shamus of Reb Nachman's own student, Reb Nosson. Reb Nosson's water carrier was Reb Nachman of Tulchin, who was a relatively simple Yehudi, and Reb Nachman of Tulchin's son, Reb Avrom, was an outstanding Gaon, a luminary of Torah, and he is the spiritual father of a stream of the Breslover Hasidim that came to Israel. Reb Avrom was in Israel. He also had a son-in-law, Reb Levi Yitzhak Bender, whose name is known to Breslover Hasidim until today, who passed away shortly after the Gulf War, after 1991. And Rabbi Yitzhak Bender was the teacher of Reb Lezer Berland, the legendary Rebbe of today in Yerushalayim. He was also the teacher of Moshe Binstock. He was the teacher of numerous other Breslov Hasidim today. There was another Gadol of Breslov who was actually a descendant of Reb Nosson, known as Reb Avrom Sternherz, the Kochav Lev. Sternherz in Yiddish is the heart of a star, and Reb Avrom had been for 50 years the Chazan of the Breslov Rosh Hashanah in Uman, and in the 1930s was able to move to Eretz Yisrael, and he lived until 1955. And Reb Avrom Sternherz was the Rebbe of other leading Breslover Hasidim until today. His leading student, his Talmud Muvak, was Reb Gedalia Koenig Zatzal, the father of Reb Lozer Koenig, the present-day Manig of Hasidic Breslov.